Picture this. I'm 16, just a kid trying to make a buck outside of babysitting or mowing lawns, and I land my first real gig at this dusty old antique store downtown. It's the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked, tucked between a diner and a hardware shop, with a faded sign creaking in the wind. I'd shuffle in after school, still in my sneakers and jeans, and spend hours wiping down chipped porcelain or hauling heavy oak chairs around. It wasn't glamorous. Hell, half the time I was sneezing from the dust, but there was something about it. The smell of old wood, the stories baked into every scratched table or tarnished lamp. It felt like I was part of something bigger, you know? And then there were the days the owner, Mrs. Hargrove, would toss me the keys and say, "You're in charge, kid," before she zipped off to run some errand. Me, a scrawny teenager, running a shop full of stuff older than my grandparents. It was wild. I'd stand behind that counter, heart pounding, half expecting someone to call my bluff. Little did I know, one afternoon was about to turn that quiet job into something I'd never forget. So, it's a regular Tuesday, the kind where the clock ticks slower than molasses, and I'm polishing some brass candlestick when the bell above the door jingles. In walks this lady, mid-40s maybe, with a perm that screams 1985 and a notebook clutched under her arm like it's a battle plan. She's got this air about her, like she's used to getting what she wants. And she heads straight for a dining room table in the corner. It's a beauty, dark walnut, carved legs, probably sat in some French chateau a century ago. I'm just watching her, figuring she's another browser, when she grabs my measuring tape off the counter and starts scribbling numbers like she's cracking a code. Finally, she looks up, fixes me with a serious stare, and goes, "I'd like to order this table, but for inches longer." I blink. Did I hear that right? I'm standing there, rag still in hand, trying to process it. Ma'am, I say, my voice probably cracking a little, "we don't exactly make these." This is an antique store. That table's one of a kind, shipped over from Europe or something. I can't just call up a workshop and add 4 inches. I try to laugh it off, keep it light, maybe even offer a solution. I know a guy who does custom stuff, though. He could build you something close? You'd think I'd slapped her. Her face goes red, eyes narrow, and she launches into me like I'm the idiot here. What kind of store doesn't take custom orders? Do you know how far I drove? This is ridiculous. She's pacing now, waving that notebook like a weapon, and I'm just a kid, frozen behind a counter, wondering how this became my problem. I mean, I'm 16. I barely know how to drive, let alone resize a 100-year-old table. She's yelling about customer service and wasting her time, and all I can do is nod and mumble apologies, hoping Mrs. Hargrove doesn't walk in mid-tantrum. Eventually, she storms out, promising to speak to the owner, and I'm left there, heart racing, candlestick still in my sweaty hand. I replay it over and over. Did I say something wrong? Could I have handled it better? It's my first job, and I'm terrified I've screwed it up. But deep down, I'm also kind of ticked off. Lady, it's an antique store, not a furniture factory. I slump into a chair, staring at that table, wondering what's coming next. Little did I know, this was just the start of the story, and Mrs. Hargrove was about to make it all worth it. The next day, I dragged myself to the shop, stomach in knots. That lady's outburst is still echoing in my head, and I'm half convinced I'm about to get fired. I mean, I'm just a kid. What do I know about dealing with people like that? I keep picturing her on the phone with Mrs. Hargrove, twisting the whole thing to make me sound like some rude punk who doesn't care about customers. Maybe she said I laughed at her or didn't try to help. I didn't, but who's going to believe me over a grown-up with a loud voice and a grudge? I push open the door, the bell jingling like a warning, and brace myself for the worst. Mrs. Hargrove there, perched behind the counter with her usual cup of coffee, flipping through a ledger. She doesn't look up right away, just grunts a, "Hey, kid," like it's any other day. I start dusting, waiting for the hammer to drop, but she's quiet, too quiet. Finally, I can't take it. Mrs. H, did someone call you yesterday? About a table? She glances up, one eyebrow arched, and I swear there's a smirk tugging at her mouth. "Oh, yeah," she says, casual as anything. Some woman yammering about you not bending over backwards to make her a custom antique. Sounded like a real peach. I freeze. Here it comes. But then she snorts, actually snorts, and shakes her head. Told her she thinks we're running a carpentry shop. She can take her nonsense somewhere else. I don't got time for that. My jaw drops. She didn't fire me. She didn't even yell. She just brushed it off like it was nothing. I stammer out something like, "You're not mad?" And she laughs, this gravelly chuckle that fills the room. Mad? Kid, you did your job. I'm not here to coddle every fool who walks in. I'm floored. All that worry, all that second guessing myself. And she's got my back like it's no big deal. It hits me then, Mrs. Hargrove isn't just some boss. She's this force, you know? She's in her 60s, tough as nails, and doesn't need this shop or its money. She told me once she only opened it, 'cause her husband retired, and she'd rather be here than stuck at home listening to him talk about golf all day. And now she's standing up for me, a nobody teenager who's still figuring out how to tie a decent knot in his apron. I feel this rush of relief, maybe even pride, because for once, someone saying I didn't mess up, that I'm enough, just as I am. That afternoon, I'm still buzzing from Mrs. Hargrove's words, replaying them like a song stuck in my head. I'm sweeping the floor, humming a little, when she calls me over. "Come here, kid," she says, voice gruff but warm, like she's about to let me in on a secret. I shuffle up to the counter, broom still in hand, and she's digging in her purse. Old leather, worn at the edges, the kind that's seen decades. She pulls out a crisp $20 bill, folds it once, and slips it into my palm, closing my fingers over like my grandma used to do with quarters for the gumball machine. "Baby," she says, leaning in close, "you earned this for putting up with that old bitch yesterday." I'm speechless. $20 in 1985? That a fortune to me. 2 movie tickets, a burger and fries, maybe even a new cassette if I stretch it. But it's not just the money. It's the way she says it. The way her eyes crinkle like she's proud of me. I mumble a, "Thanks, Mrs. H." And she waves me off, muttering something about getting back to work. But I can tell she's pleased. I tuck that bill in my pocket, feeling its weight all day, like a little piece of her faith in me. Looking back, that moment sticks with me more than the tantrum or the table. Mrs. Hargrove didn't have to do that. She didn't owe me anything. She could have just let it slide, told me to toughen up, but instead, she saw me, a kid who was scared, out of his depth, trying to figure out how to stand his ground. And she didn't just offend me to that lady. She made sure I knew I'd done all right. It's funny how small things like that can hit you so deep. I was 16, broke, and clueless, but that $20 felt like a medal, a quiet "you're okay" from someone who didn't hand out praise easy. Years later, I'd learned more about her. How she'd raised 3 kids alone after her first husband walked out. How she fought tooth and nail to keep the shop going even when folks said it wouldn't last. She didn't need the money. She needed the fight, the purpose. And that day, she gave me a piece of hers. I still think about that $20 sometimes, how it wasn't just cash. It was her way of saying, "You're tougher than you think." It's the kind of thing that stays with you, you know? Makes you want to be better, to pass that kind of belief on someday. This all went down in 1985, back when the world felt slower, simpler, at least to a kid like me. Reagan's on TV, MTV's blasting Springsteen, and $20 in your pocket makes you feel like a king. I'd ride my bike to the shop, wind in my hair, no helmet, 'cause nobody cared back then, and I'd dream about what that money could buy. A new Walkman, maybe, or a stack of comics to read under the covers with a flashlight. It wasn't just cash. It was possibility. A little taste of freedom when you're 16, and the world's still half mystery. Back then, that antique store was my universe. I'd walk those creaky floors, surrounded by stuff that had seen wars and weddings, births and deaths, and I'd wonder about the people who'd owned it all. That table the lady freaked out over? It probably sat in some big, fancy house once, surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses. Now it's here, gathering dust in a small town shop, and I'm the one caught in its story. It's wild to think about how time wraps around things, how a kid like me ended up tied to it for a minute. And Mrs. Hargrove? She was the heart of it all. She'd sit there with her coffee, her sharp eyes catching everything, and I'd feel safe, you know? like she'd seen it all and still showed up every day. That $20 wasn't just a tip. It was her telling me I could handle the mess, the noise, the people who'd try to knock me down. In '85, that meant everything. I was still figuring out who I was, awkward, unsure, scared of screwing up, but she gave me a nudge, a quiet, "You'll be all right." It's funny how much that sticks with you, how a single afternoon can shape the way you see yourself. Looking back, I realize how lucky I was. Not every kid gets a first job with someone like her. Someone who doesn't just boss you around, but lifts you up when you're shaky. That $20 bill? I spent it eventually. Probably on something dumb like pizza or a movie, but what it stood for never left me. It was 1985, and I was just starting out, but that day, that shop, that tough old lady with a soft spot, they gave me something I could carry forever. A little courage, a little faith, wrapped up in a folded bill and a gruff, "Good job, kid."
Thanks for listening to my story. It's been a heavy one to share. I'm still figuring out what comes next, but having you here means a lot. If you connected with this, please hit that subscribe button for Life Reflections. I'd love to have you along for more real moments like this. Take care, everyone.